The Switch 2 is officially 1 month old now, which means it can legally drink. So I thought what better way to commemorate this milestone than going over its first month on the market. Damn, you are hammered! The Nintendo Switch 2 was released on June 5th, 2025, and it had no controversy surrounding its launch. I think. 2 months prior, Nintendo held a Switch 2 Direct where they went over just about everything there was to know about the console, while also leaving out a couple big details. Most notably, the price. A lot of people thought that this would retail for a clean $400, so when the news broke of the actual price, it threw some people off. Nintendo has a history of being the cheap console for a lot of people. But this is the same price you pay for a PS5 at launch. It was clear that this time around, Nintendo was really going to have to prove themselves to justify such a high price point. What the hell? $80 for Mario Kart! Why? Video games were trending in the direction of $70 for a couple of years now, sure. But $80! Nintendo themselves didn't confirm or deny these prices right away either, which, in my opinion, made everything worse. News articles left and right kept on saying that the game would be $90 for a physical copy, which wasn't true. The price also varied depending on where you were at in the world, with countries like Canada and Japan getting their pricing first and news articles running with that. Fake news stories kept popping up all over the place. Some about the console being digital only, some regarding the Switch's hardware. There was even one that said Nintendo would fully brick your console if it detected any piracy. Actually, that one was true. Now, really, Nintendo can't actually break your Nintendo Switch 2, but they can suspend you from any online activity if you violate their user agreement, which pretty much means putting Giggle McBigglefuck as your username, so I guess avoid doing that. This, on top of a lot of news coverage surrounding the console, made for a pretty interesting launch day. I walked to GameStop, sit down for 6 hours, pre-order the console, wait 9 more hours, pick up the console, and now we are here. Here we have the Nintendo Switch 2, in a box that is nearly half the size of the original. That's pretty impressive when you consider just how much stuff is in this thing. Tablet, Joy-Con 1, Joy-Con 2, brick, USB-C, dock, grip, strap 1, strap 2, and HDMI, all in this one box. No choice of colors this time around. We got to choose between gray and colored Joy-Cons with the Switch 1, but the Switch 2 we only get a matte black for the console, which I think looks pretty clean. The Joy-Cons got an upgrade, now being much larger with the addition of the larger shoulder buttons for when playing on its side. They also now attach magnetically, which you'd think would cause problems, but honestly they're surprisingly strong. The thumbsticks now have covers over them, presumably to prevent stick drift, and oh yeah, you can use this thing as a mouse now. Nintendo really tried pushing this in the Direct, showcasing it in games like Mario Party and this new game called Dragon Drive. I mean, it's a cool enough feature for me to try it once in a while, but I don't see myself using this a whole bunch. Just like the original Switch, you can pop the Joy-Cons into the new grip that comes with the console. This time, instead of sliding in, of course, they snap into place. I barely use the Joy-Cons this way, but for what it's worth, I think the old grip was better. More of the grip was able to come to the front of the controller with the original Joy-Cons. With the new ones, there's dead space there, so you're likely to rest your hands on the actual Joy-Cons, not the grip itself. But who cares? The Joy-Con straps are back, everybody! The straps also make it easier to hold the Joy-Con 2 controllers. Thank God! Switching over to the new dock, we have curves finally. Of course, for the new larger Switch, the dock itself is bigger overall, but the main differences are actually on the back of the station. After popping off the back cover, we see 3 ports, one for power, one for display, and one for Ethernet. Only semi-new thing here is the Ethernet, but that was on the Switch OLED. The real new addition is on the inside of the dock with the new cooling station. The dock now has a fan to help play the really powerful games, and is one of the reasons the Switch 2 can run up to 4K 120fps. This is the first time any Nintendo console has been able to run 4K, and these improvements aren't just exclusive from when the Switch is plugged into the TV. Handheld mode also got a pretty big upgrade now, being able to run at 1080p, which is pretty in line with most modern gaming handhelds. Looking at the tablet, only 2 major differences here. The kickstand, which now has a much wider range of motion and isn't a stupid piece of shit, and an extra USB-C port at the top for charging in tabletop mode. But what if it wasn't enough? What if you need more than what's just in the box? The Joy-Con 2 charging grip. This is kinda useless. To the untrained eye, this might just look like the grip that comes with your console, but you'd be wrong. This grip allows you to plug in your Joy-Cons and charge them right then and there in the grip. But have you ever noticed how long Joy-Cons last? You can play up to 20 hours with both Joy-Cons, but even if they did somehow die, you can just plug them back into the tablet. The only real new addition to this grip is the buttons on the back. These buttons are customizable to act like any other button on the Joy-Cons and are a neat little addition, but if you really want the best experience for the Switch 2, I recommend getting the Switch 2 Pro controller. This controller is perfect. I have no issues with it. Almost. Compared to the original Pro controller, this is very similar all around, but it does have some notable changes. It's no longer made of the hard see-through plastic of the original, but rather a soft matte black plastic that matches the Switch 2's aesthetic. The shoulder buttons, while still not analog, are now white and match the underside of the thumbsticks. The thumbsticks were my biggest issue with the original Pro controller. Whenever the sticks hit the controller shell, it was loud, and after playing for a while, you started to see these white markings on them. These new sticks, I assume, get rid of this issue. They seem to be made of a different type of plastic, which might hold up better than the Switch 1 controller. In addition to that, these sticks make a lot less noise than the original controller. And this is the case for the rest of the controller as well. They mentioned this a couple times in the Switch 2 Direct, about how the controller overall will be a lot quieter, and as someone who owns an Xbox, the Joy-Con 2 wheels! The Nintendo Switch 2 camera was one of the accessories that got a lot of spotlight in the Direct. It was heavily associated with the new chat system Nintendo was trying to push, and while the camera quality is a decent 1080p, I don't think it's gonna matter. The camera was also featured in certain games showcased in the Direct, but it doesn't do much more than act as a face cam. The camera's $55, and is gonna be pretty useless in a year when the chat feature becomes locked behind Nintendo Switch Online, so I don't plan on picking one up anytime soon. This one was an interesting pickup, the Nintendo Switch 2 GameCube controller. Amidst all the Switch 2 hype, I had almost forgotten about this being released. This coincides with the release of GameCube on Nintendo Switch Online, and for those games, it works perfectly. This looks and feels like an official first-party GameCube controller, albeit slightly heavier, but the feel is nearly identical. I also really appreciate the fact that they added all the additional buttons found on the Pro Controller, so you don't have to swap between the two like you've had to in the past. In my opinion, this is an excellent pickup if you want to play GameCube games, or if you don't want to keep bringing a GameCube adapter every time you want to play Smash. The launch lineup for the Switch 2 was pretty solid all around. Nothing too flashy, but enough games were there where you were bound to like something. On the third-party side of things, big releases consisted of Cyberpunk, Deltarune, Street Fighter, Hitman, and a good amount of others. In terms of first-party, the selections were slim, only 4 games made by Nintendo. One of those being... I think we all had the same reaction when this game was announced.
Use new gameplay.
Yes! 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 Yes!
Nintendo
yes!
Switch 2 Welcome
Yes!
Tour will launch as a paid digital game on the same day as Nintendo Switch 2.
Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour on the surface is a fine game, but Nintendo totally set it up to fail. It's well put together, very informative, and it's a nice little tutorial showcasing the new features of the console. But my list of good things to say about the game ends there. This game is like an interactive instruction manual, and that wouldn't be a bad thing if it was actually a part of the setup process. If Nintendo just packaged these in with the consoles, giving you something to do after you just spent $500, then this game would be looked at in a much different light than it is right now. And this is coming from Nintendo, the creators of Wii Sports, Nintendo Land, heck, even the AR cards and face raiders for the 3DS. Nintendo does a great job of getting you familiarized with your console very quickly. So it blows my mind that they were able to drop the ball this hard with a game that seems like it was built to be packaged in with the console. Like I said, it's a Nintendo game and it's well put together, but the mini games are something that you can make in Scratch. There's no reason to charge what they are charging for this. So the first party game we looked at is disappointing, but what about the other 3? The next 2 first-party releases were The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. This is their 3rd time releasing Breath of the Wild. The new versions look beautiful. Obviously, with the Switch 2 hardware, these games run very smooth and pretty much every wrinkle with the old games is fixed. But looking at the extra content here to make it a Switch 2 Edition, fucking map. Look, I get it. People were already gonna buy this game for the 4K and the frame rate, but for $10, all we got was a map. Games like Mario Odyssey, ARMS, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, those are games that got free visual upgrades at the launch for the Switch 2. So it sucks to see these similar upgrades for Zelda get locked behind a paywall. But let's be real. If you were buying any Switch 2 game at launch, it was going to be Mario Kart World. Coming off of 10 straight years of Mario Kart 8, this game had a lot of expectations. When it was all said and done, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to a lot of people was the perfect Mario Kart. It had the largest roster of characters, nearly 100 tracks to choose from, an active online space, a revised battle mode from the Wii U release. The game really had it all. So inevitably, following that up was gonna be a tough task. But even comparing it to 8 Deluxe, essentially a 10-year-old game with DLC, Mario Kart World definitely holds its own. Looking at the roster, dear god, 50 characters overall this time around, which is only 2 more than 8 Deluxe, but Mario Kart World also offers over 100 costumes to choose from. And while I appreciate the variety that's offered here, I have to admit, a large majority of the newly added characters don't do anything for me. A lot of fan favorites got cut this time around. Kamek, Funky Kong, the Koopalink... Actually, not them. Dry Bowser, Petey Piranha, the Mii's, all of the non-Nintendo characters, a good amount of 8 Deluxe's characters got the boot. But have no fear, the roster's saved, everyone say hello to Peepa. While the roster being so large is cool, it also isn't fully practical. If you have everything unlocked, that's nearly 200 character spots that you have to sort through. This is especially a problem when playing online. It feels like sometimes you don't even get the chance to scroll through all the characters before the race begins. If you want to play as Wicked Wasp Wario, you're fucked. Moving on from the characters, the track selection this time around is very solid. For now, we only have 32 tracks, but I have to say Nintendo did an excellent job picking out these courses. These selections really bring together the idea of this big open world that they were going for. Retro courses like Choco Mountain and Toad's Factory were redesigned in a way where they can feel both like their classic forms, while also creating a sort of new identity for themselves through the new textures and themes. I think what really helps this idea of one big world is the track design, and more importantly, the area around the track itself. You're not just driving through courses anymore, you're driving from one course to another while also exploring areas of the track that may have been off limits than previous titles. And while it is cool to see the old courses remastered and reimagined in this new format, the newly added courses bring a different level of creativity that makes Mario Kart World what it is. Tracks like Boost Cinema, Great Question Block Ruins, Drybones Burnout, these tracks have that certain Mario Kart charm and creativity cranked up to the max, and it really shows that the developers took their time with this game and wasted none of it. This is especially apparent in the new free roam mode, in which you basically get to drive wherever you want to go on the map. I've heard a good amount of criticism on this mode recently, mostly from the argument that people just find it boring. But throughout the world, there are question blocks, hidden tokens, and P-switches that activate challenges. There's a good amount of stuff to do. If you know where to look, there's stuff to do in this mode. I found that going to specific courses and slowly branching outward to the surrounding areas of the tracks is the way to go. P-switches are easily visible, I get to see more areas I haven't discovered yet, and it's a great way to unlock costumes without feeling like a chore. Or I just follow Toads for a couple hours, that usually works. Battle mode is back. Kind of. We have the standard 2 options here. We can either do balloon battle or coin runners. And looking at those battle courses... oh. Admittedly, at first glance, it looks pretty rough. But while these selections aren't perfect, they do just fine in my opinion. So at first, it seems like they did exactly what they did in Mario Kart 8 and picked 8 Grand Prix tracks. But looking further into it, you can see that the tracks that share names with those in the Grand Prix are noticeably changed. Certain paths used in intermission races are free to roam on these battle courses, which I feel does a good enough job to open up the area a bit, while also setting a clear boundary. But thankfully, not all battle courses are like this. Courses like Chain Chomp Desert take a big empty area of the map and turn it into a functional battle course, which is pretty impressive considering you don't see these much racing in the Grand Prix. So while I feel the tracks we got are fine, this is an area of the game that could benefit from possible future DLC. Modes like Shine Thief and Renegade Roundup brought the Mario Kart 8 battle scene back to life when they were introduced in 8 Deluxe, so I definitely think those, or maybe a new mode altogether, could really brighten things up. And that was Mario Kart World. For Mario Kart, this game runs great and it looks incredible, but it definitely has its flaws. Given time and added content down the road similar to 8 Deluxe, I think this game has the ability to become something really special, more than it already is. Mario Kart is all about having chaotic fun with your friends, and we saw Nintendo trying to give off that message a lot in the lead up to the Switch 2's release. It might not be the perfect Mario Kart game, but I think it's exactly what the Switch needed at launch. So that was the Switch 2's first month on the market, and overall, it sold really well. The Switch 2 does a great job building off the success of the Switch 1, and while it's still not perfect, I'd argue it does a great job giving you a quality gaming experience. Oh yeah, he's definitely passed out.